I'm going to do a video today on sectionalizing a problem with a bearing that is wearing in either a power steering pump or an alternator or possibly an air conditioning air compressor. Next video you're going to see, hopefully you'll be able to hear the sound. It's a whirring, kind of a grinding sound that's coming out of the engine. And what I want to do is find out if the issue is my power steering pump here, or possibly, if I follow these belts down, my alternator down there, or down below the alternator. Hopefully I can get a hand on it, or at least point in the general direction of it. Lighting is kind of bad here, but the air conditioning compressor down below. Now, what I first did was I basically just looked at the engine while it was running to see if I could see one of these belts vibrating as this wheel turned. Now, if you're doing that, anytime you're looking around an engine that's running, you want to stand clear of it. You want to make sure you don't put your hands in there. There's a lot of danger. You might think that you're clear of everything, but you got a piece of loose clothing or something that might get caught up in something. So you want to be very careful whenever you're around an engine that's actually running. So I stood back. Hopefully in the video you could hear the wearing noise of the bearing in whichever one of these units is actually wearing out and causing that grinding noise. So ideally you have a maintenance manual for your vehicle. These things are great. I mentioned them a lot in videos. They're generally around $30–35. They'll step you through a lot of procedures for the particular vehicle that you bought the manual for. Give you an idea where all your parts are. A lot of times you can get a pretty good idea just by tracing some of the things through. For instance, this is the power steering pump. And I can tell that by following here's the power steering fluid reservoir, and just by looking at where the lines from the power steering pump going over to this reservoir. So you can tell some pretty basic things like that, but the manuals are great because they'll really lay out where the different parts of your vehicle are. So like anything else pretty much that you ever go to do around a vehicle, there's multiple different ways to approach it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow this down as to which part is wearing by loosening off the belt for the power steering pump here. Now, the way these are generally adjusted, hopefully I can show this, is there will be the mounting bolts for the unit. So here's the power steering pump. We can see a mounting bolt here, and if we look, hopefully I can get this on camera, we can see that there's actually a groove where that bolt is. Generally, if you see something like that, that's an adjustment, because there'll be a point, there'll be one bolt where a unit like this is mounted and swivels, and then anything like, generally when you see something like that, like a grooved portion machined in there, that would be the adjustment for the tightness of the unit. So I'm going to loosen off the power steering pump and just try spinning it by hand. And you definitely want to have your vehicle ignition system disabled, remove the cable from your battery, whatever your manual recommends, to make sure nothing starts whenever you're working around a motor like this. Something I like to do if I'm loosening the tension on a belt and I don't actually intend to replace the belt, is I'll usually take a tie wrap and put it around the belt, and then maybe put a bungee cord or something like that to keep tension on the belt, because there's nothing worse than loosening off something like this power steering motor here, and the belt here falling off the wheel down below, because unless you have the vehicle up on ramps or someplace where you can get easily to whatever wheel that is on the bottom part of the engine, you're going to be fighting with that. And the other good thing is too, it kind of keeps it in place where it already was situated. So as I say, got a tie wrap there, some bungee cords. Obviously be careful you don't when you release the tension on here, it doesn't spring back. Keep an eye on it, but generally is a good way to keep things in place. Another thing I would generally do before loosening off this adjustment bolt here would be I would mark a line here so that I know that when I'm done with this I can get this back to the same spot it was in. Turns out, as you can probably see, this vehicle is so old and there's rust around this, I'll be able to tell exactly where this was. But the great thing for marking that, if you did want to mark a bolt or something, is nail polish. So steal a bottle of your wife's nail polish and just mark that, and you could get any adjustment bolts back to where they were before you started. Okay, so I've got a 13mm bolt here. I'm going to set my ratchet for lefty-loosey, or counterclockwise, loosen that off. You got an extension on it simply because this cable is here and I don't want to have the head of the ratchet in around there stressing that. So just going to move that up a bit, and I'm just going to start gently as I can, start to loosen that bolt off. And it's been a long time since that was loosened, so there we go. So I always say these things have usually been in place for years, so I try to just kind of ease onto everything, a little less likely to break it. Now I've loosened that off. I don't know if you can see it too, but I put some shop towels down in there, so I don't want to get power steering fluid over any of these belts. So now I'll just loosen that off a bit more and we'll see what we got. So looking at the engine from the front of the vehicle here, just to get our bearings, here's our power steering pump and our belt again. We just loosened off that pivot bolt. Turns out the lock bolt is down here, which is also a 12mm. So you're probably going to have the same type of deal generally. One bolt that locks it in place and the other one that pivots. So I'm going to loosen that off now. And this vehicle has another line of defense to keep the power steering pump all aligned, and that's this 10mm bolt here, which is attached to this bracket, if we can see from the side. And what we have is, hopefully you can see this, that goes down through this bolt here, which is a hole in it. So as I turn that, and I've taken note of how many threads are on the bottom of that bolt so I can get it back in the same place. So I'm going to loosen that off too. Now we can see here, power steering pump is starting to loosen off here, but not enough that I can get the tension off of this belt, because what I want to do is spin this wheel just with my hand to see if the bearing, if I can hear the bearing in it wearing, and I'm going to shake it back and forth to see if I feel movement this way. But it's not relieving the tension enough without me taking that 10mm bolt out. So I'm going to remove that fully. So as I loosen this bolt off, we can see it coming out of the hole in that bolt there, which is keeping it in place. If I can turn that by hand, show you what I mean here. And that's why the power steering pump wasn't pivoting. I gotta take that bolt right out so that it comes out of that hole. It allows this to pivot. So as it turns out, for this power steering pump, both of these bolts that I loosened off are pivot points. We could actually see that because of that groove that is in the mounting brackets that they're attached to. But anyway, both of those are loosened off. I've got my tie wraps there holding the tension on the belt, and now I can actually turn this. So I'm going to move these a little bit more out of the way very carefully, because I know I have a certain amount of room that I can move this power steering pump, because as I follow these metal lines from the power steering pump down, they're actually flex hoses here. So I know I can move it a bit, but I'm not going to get too aggressive. I'm just going to carefully move it, and then what I'm going to do is spin this and see if I feel any friction there, and just give it a shake. Now I'll have to hold it. I can't do this with the camera, but I'll have to hold the body of the power steering pump steady and give this a shake to see if I feel movement. And it's possible from what I'm seeing now that this may be worn inside. But anyway, that's one way to troubleshoot something like this if you're not really sure what's making the wearing sound, whether it's a power steering pump or alternator bearings, whatever. So in this particular instance, power steering pump is not the problem. I can spin the wheel, don't get any sound of grinding bearings inside there. If I hold this steady, the body of the power steering pump, and try to move this, there's no movement there. So chances are I'm going to have to take the alternator belt off, give that a shake, and chances are it's probably down the air conditioning pump, because that's the bottommost device on these belts. But anyway, hopefully you got a couple of helpful tips there.